Cassandra Mitchell clutched her worn leather portfolio tighter as she rushed down the bustling streets of downtown Seattle. The autumn morning was crisp, and her breath formed small clouds in the chilly air. She was already 20 minutes late for her client presentation, and her anxiety was climbing with every passing second. Cass had spent 3 sleepless nights perfecting the logo designs for a small bakery. She desperately needed this commission to make rent this month. Life as a freelance graphic designer is nothing like the glamorous career she had imagined. In college, most days were a careful balance between creativity and survival, between artistic integrity and paying bills. At 26, Cass was proud of her independence, even if it meant living in a tiny studio apartment and surviving on instant noodles. More often than she cared to admit, she rounded the corner toward the Emerald Coffee House, her usual meeting spot with clients. The cozy cafe was her sanctuary, a place where dreams were sketched on napkins and contracts were signed over steaming lattes. But today, fate had other plans. The accident that changed everything. Cass was so focused on checking her phone for the client's confirmation message that she didn't see him. One moment she was walking through the cafe entrance, and the next, she collided full force with a solid wall of expensive suit and cologne. Her portfolio went flying, papers scattering across the polished floor like autumn leaves. But worse, much worse, was the large cup of scalding coffee that erupted between them, drenching the front of his pristine white shirt. Time seemed to freeze. Cass looked up, her apology dying on her lips, as she met the most intense pair of gray eyes she had ever seen. The man was tall, probably in his early 30s, with dark hair styled perfectly and features that belonged on a magazine cover. But it was the expression on his face that made her heart sink. Not anger, exactly, but a mixture of shock and something else she couldn't quite place. "Oh my God, I am so sorry," Cass stammered, dropping to her knees to gather her scattered designs. Her cheeks burned with humiliation. "I wasn't looking where I was going. Please, let me pay for your dry cleaning." The man looked down at his ruined shirt, then at the frantic young woman scrambling at his feet. A slow smile curved his lips, completely transforming his serious expression. "Well, this is certainly the most interesting start to my morning I've had in years." Cass glanced up, surprised by his amused tone. She had expected fury, maybe even threats of a lawsuit. Instead, he was crouching down beside her, helping to gather her designs. His hands were elegant, she noticed, with long fingers that handled her work with unexpected care. "These are really good," he said, studying one of her logo concepts. "Have a unique style, bold but approachable." An unexpected connection. Cass sat back on her heels, momentarily forgetting her embarrassment. "You think so?"
Thank you.
"I've been trying to develop a signature approach that balances modern aesthetics with emotional resonance." The man handed her the stack of papers, his gray eyes twinkling with genuine interest. "I'm Nathan Sterling, and you are clearly someone who takes their work seriously." The name hit her like a second collision. Nathan Sterling, the Nathan Sterling, founder and CEO of Sterling Technologies, one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the Pacific Northwest. She had read articles about him in business magazines, seen his face on the covers of Forbes, an entrepreneur. He was worth billions. A self-made success story who had revolutionized cloud computing before turning 30, and she had just dumped coffee all over him. "I know who you are," Cass whispered, her face going pale. "Mr. Sterling, I am so incredibly sorry. I'll pay for everything, the shirt, the suit, whatever you need." Nathan laughed, a rich, warm sound that seemed to fill the entire cafe. "Please, call me Nathan. And honestly, this shirt cost more than it should have. Consider it a lesson in not taking myself too seriously." He stood, offering her his hand. "You still haven't told me your name." Cass let him pull her to her feet, acutely aware of how strong and warm his grip was. "Cassandra Mitchell."
Oh.
"Most people call me Cass. I'm a graphic designer. Freelance?" Nathan guessed, gesturing to her portfolio. "What did you know?" Slightly. "Desperate look in your eyes when you were checking your phone. It's the worn but well-maintained portfolio. The fact that you're meeting clients in a coffee shop instead of an office." His expression softened. "I started my company in a place just like this 7 years ago. I recognize the hunger, the determination, A proposal she couldn't refuse. Something shifted in the air between them. Cass felt it, an electric current of understanding that transcended their vastly different worlds. Here was a billionaire who remembered what it was like to struggle, who saw her not as the clumsy woman who ruined his morning but as a fellow creator. "Look," Nathan said, pulling out his phone. "I'm actually in the market for a rebrand, Sterling. Technologies has grown rapidly, but our visual identity hasn't kept pace. I've been interviewing fancy agencies for months, sitting through presentations that all look the same, corporate, safe, boring." He looked at her designs again. "But this, what you're doing here, this has soul." Cass's heart began to race for an entirely different reason. "Are you offering me a job?" "I'm offering you an opportunity. Come to my office tomorrow. Show me what you can do with a real budget and creative freedom. If I like what I see, the contract is yours." He handed her a business card with his personal contact information, and Cass, "Bring that hunger, that authenticity. That's what I'm looking for." Before she could respond, Nathan's phone buzzed insistently. He glanced at it and sighed. "I have a board meeting in 15 minutes, and I definitely need to change first." He smiled at her one more time, a smile that made her knees feel weak. "Don't be late tomorrow, Cassandra Mitchell. I have a feeling you're going to surprise me." And then he was gone, leaving Cass standing in the middle of the cafe, clutching his business card like a winning lottery ticket. Her client arrived moments later, full of apologies for running late, but Cass barely heard her explanation.
Yes.
Her mind was already racing ahead, imagining the possibilities that had just opened up before her. The weight of opportunity that evening. Cass sat in her cramped apartment, surrounded by her laptop, sketchbooks, and half-empty containers of Chinese takeout. Through her small window, she could see the glittering lights of downtown Seattle, including the distinctive Sterling Technologies tower that dominated the skyline. Somewhere up there, in an office probably bigger than her entire apartment, Nathan Sterling was making decisions that affected thousands of people. And tomorrow, she would walk into that world. Cass pulled up Sterling Technologies on her laptop, researching everything she could find about the company. Nathan's story was even more impressive up close. He had dropped out of MIT at 19 to start his first company, sold it for millions at 23, and then poured everything into Sterling Technologies. But it wasn't just about the money. Every article mentioned his commitment to innovation, his belief in technology that served humanity rather than replacing it. She found photos of him at charity galas, always in perfectly tailored suits, often with a beautiful woman on his arm. The most recent pictures featured someone named Victoria Ashford, described as a socialite and philanthropist. They looked perfect together, like they belonged in the pages of a fairy tale. The last photo was from 3 months ago, at some exclusive event in New York. Cass closed her laptop, feeling a strange flutter in her chest. What was she thinking? Nathan Sterling wasn't interested in her romantically. He was a billionaire with a girlfriend who probably had her own trust fund. He had offered her a professional opportunity, nothing more. The connection she thought she felt was probably just his natural charisma. It's the kind that made him successful in business. But as she finally climbed into bed, exhausted but exhilarated, Cass couldn't shake the memory of those gray eyes looking at her with genuine interest. Tomorrow would change everything. She could feel it in her bones. Whether that change would be professional, personal, or something she couldn't yet imagine, only time would tell. The Sterling Technologies building was even more impressive up close. Cass stood on the sidewalk, craning her neck to take in the sleek glass tower that seemed to pierce the clouds. Her reflection stared back at her from the polished entrance. A young woman in her best blazer and a dress she had bought specifically for this meeting. She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and walked through the revolving doors. The lobby was a masterpiece of modern design. Its marble floors, living walls covered in greenery, and a massive digital display showcasing Sterling Technologies' latest innovations. Everyone moved with purpose, their expensive shoes clicking against the floor in a symphony of ambition. Cass felt like an imposter, but she forced herself to approach the reception desk with confidence. "Cassandra Mitchell to see Nathan Sterling," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. The receptionist, a polished woman with a perfect smile, typed something into her computer. Yes. Mr. Sterling is expecting you. Take the executive elevator to the 42nd floor. His assistant will meet you there. The elevator ride felt like ascending into another dimension. With each passing floor, Cass's nervousness grew. What if her designs weren't good enough? What if yesterday had been a fluke, a moment of impulse from a bored billionaire? By the time the doors opened, her palms were sweating. Nathan's assistant, a sharp-eyed man named Derek, greeted her with professional courtesy and led her through a maze of glass-walled offices. Through the transparent walls, she could see teams of people working on projects she couldn't begin to understand. Finally, they reached a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of Elliott Bay. Nathan stood at the window, his back to her, talking on his phone. He wore another impeccable suit, charcoal gray this time, and even from behind, he radiated authority. Derek cleared his throat softly, and Nathan turned, his face lighting up when he saw Cass. "I'll call you back," he said into the phone, ending the conversation without taking his eyes off her. "Cassandra, you came. Did you think I wouldn't?" Cass asked, surprised by her own boldness. Nathan smiled, that same transforming smile from yesterday. "I've learned that not everyone keeps their promises, but I had a feeling about you." He gestured to the conference table. "Please, show me what you've been working on." It's the presentation that changed everything. Spread her materials across the table, her nervousness evaporating as she fell into the rhythm of her presentation. She had stayed up until 3 in the morning, crafting a vision for Sterling Technologies that honored its innovation while making it more accessible, more human. Her designs featured clean lines and bold colors, but with subtle touches that suggested warmth and connection. Nathan listened intently, asking thoughtful questions, challenging her choices in ways that made her think deeper about her own work. This wasn't just a wealthy man indulging a whim. He genuinely cared about every detail, every decision. An hour passed, then 2, and Cass found herself relaxing, even laughing as they debated the merits of different color palettes. "You get it?" Nathan said finally, leaning back in his chair. "Most of the agencies I've talked to want to make us look like every other tech company. Sleek, cold, untouchable. But that's not who we are. We're building technology that brings people together, and you've captured that perfectly." Cass felt a warmth spread through her chest. "So does this mean ... The project is yours. Derek will send over the contract this afternoon. I want you to start immediately, and I want to be personally involved in the creative process." Nathan stood, extending his hand. "Welcome to Sterling Technologies, Cass." As their hands met, Cass felt that electric current again, stronger this time. Nathan seemed to feel it too, because he held her hand a moment longer than necessary, his gray eyes searching hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. Late nights and deeper connections, the next 3 weeks were a whirlwind. Cass found herself spending 12-hour days at Sterling Technologies, often working late into the night alongside Nathan. They would sit in his office after everyone else had gone home, surrounded by design mock-ups and half-eaten takeout containers, debating every aspect of the rebrand. During those late-night sessions, Cass began to see past the billionaire facade to the man underneath. Nathan was brilliant, driven, and surprisingly funny. He told her stories about his early struggles, about sleeping in his car while building his first company, about the fear and exhilaration of risking everything on a dream. He spoke about his parents, immigrants who had worked 3 jobs each to give him opportunities, and how their sacrifice drove him to succeed. In turn, Cass found herself opening up in ways she never had before. She told him about growing up in a small town in Oregon, about her father walking out when she was 12, about her mother's quiet strength as she raised 3 kids alone. She talked about her own fears, the constant worry that she wasn't good enough, smart enough, talented, enough to make it in a world that seemed designed for people who already had advantages. "That fear never goes away," Nathan said one night, looking out at the city lights. "I still wake up sometimes wondering when everyone will realize I'm just making it up as I go along. But that's what keeps us sharp, keeps us hungry. The moment you think you've made it is the moment you stop growing." Cass studied his profile in the dim light of the office. "Is that why you're always working? even when you don't have to? Nathan turned to her, and something vulnerable flickered across his face. I work because when I stop, I remember how quiet my apartment is, how empty. Success is supposed to make you happy, but sometimes it just makes you lonely. The confession hung in the air between them. Cass wanted to reach out, to touch his hand, to tell him she understood that loneliness better than he knew. But before she could move, Nathan's phone buzzed, breaking the spell. He glanced at it, and his expression shuddered, the vulnerable man disappearing behind the CEO mask. "It's late," he said, his voice suddenly formal. "You should go home." "Can pick this up tomorrow?" It's the charity gala 2 weeks later. Nathan invited Cass to attend Sterling Technologies' annual charity gala as part of the rebrand team. She tried to decline, knowing she didn't belong in that world of designer gowns and champagne fountains, but Nathan insisted, even sent a stylist to her apartment with a selection of dresses that probably cost more than her yearly rent. Gala was held at a historic mansion overlooking Puget Sound. Cass felt like Cinderella as she walked up the grand staircase in an emerald green gown that made her feel both beautiful and terrified. Inside, the ballroom glittered with crystal, chandeliers, and the city's elite. She recognized faces from magazines, tech moguls and old money families mingling under the guise of charity. Nathan found her almost immediately, and the look on his face made her heart skip. He wore a black tuxedo that fit him perfectly, but it was the way his eyes lit up when he saw her that took her breath away. "You look stunning," he said, offering his arm. "Dance with me." On the dance floor, with Nathan's hand on her waist and the orchestra playing something timeless and romantic, Cass felt the rest of the world fade away. They moved together naturally, as if they had been dancing for years instead of minutes. "Glad you came," Nathan murmured, his breath warm against her ear. "I know this isn't your scene." "It's not," Cass admitted, "but being here with you makes it bearable." Nathan pulled back slightly to look at her, and the intensity in his gaze made her dizzy. "Cass, I need to tell you something. These past few weeks working with you have been the best I've had in years. You make me remember why I started all this in the first place. You make me feel ... Nathan, darling, there you are." The voice cut through the moment like a knife. They both turned to see a striking woman in a red dress approaching them. She had the kind of beauty that came from excellent genes and better plastic surgery, with blonde hair styled in perfect waves and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Victoria," Nathan said, and Cass felt his entire body tense. "Victoria Ashford." The woman from the photos slipped her arm through Nathan's with practiced ease. "You didn't tell me you were bringing a date. How rude of you." She looked Cass up and down with barely concealed disdain. "And who might you be?" "This is Cassandra Mitchell," Nathan said, gently but firmly removing Victoria's arm. "She's the lead designer on our rebrand project." "Oh, how lovely. An employee." Victoria's smile sharpened. Nathan always was charitable, giving opportunities to people who need them. She turned to Nathan, ignoring Cass completely.
Oh.
"We need to talk. In private. It's about the merger your board is considering." Cass watched as Nathan's jaw tightened. "Victoria, this isn't the time or place." "Of course it is. Business and pleasure, darling. You taught me that." Victoria glanced at Cass with false sweetness. "You don't mind if I borrow him for a moment, do you? Important people have important conversations." Before Cass could respond, Nathan spoke firmly. "Actually, I do mind. Cass and I were in the middle of something. Whatever you need to discuss can wait until Monday." Victoria's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing anger beneath the polished surface. "I see. Well, enjoy your evening then." She looked at Cass one more time. "Be careful, dear. Nathan has a habit of collecting projects. It's easy to confuse his attention with something more meaningful." As Victoria glided away, Cass felt something cold settle in her stomach. The magic of the evening had shattered, replaced by harsh reality. She was an employee, a project, someone. Nathan had taken interest in the same way he might invest in a promising startup. "Cass, please don't listen to her," Nathan said urgently, taking her hand. "She's my ex-fiancée, and she's bitter about how things ended. What she said, it's not true. You're not a project to me. Then what am I? Cass asked, her voice barely. Above a whisper, Nathan opened his mouth, then closed it, struggling with words. In that moment of hesitation, Cass saw the answer. He didn't know. Or worse, he knew but couldn't say it. I should go, Cass said, pulling her hand away. Thank you for inviting me. The gala is beautiful. Cass, wait, but she was already moving. Through the crowd, desperate to escape before the tears burning in her eyes could fall. She had been foolish allowing herself to imagine that there could be something real between them. Nathan Sterling lived in a world of mansions and charity galas, of ex-fiancés who wore dresses that cost more than Cass's car. She was just the girl who spilled coffee on him, given a chance out of pity or whim. Outside, the cool night air hit her face like a slap. Cass wrapped her arms around herself, trying to hold together the pieces of her breaking heart. She had done exactly what she promised herself she wouldn't do. She had fallen for someone completely, impossibly out of reach. Behind her, she heard the mansion doors open, heard Nathan calling her name. But Cass kept walking, disappearing into the night, before he could catch up, before he could see just how much his hesitation had hurt her. Monday morning arrived with the weight of inevitability. Cass sat in her small apartment, staring at her laptop screen, trying to find the courage to face Nathan again. She had spent the entire weekend replaying that moment on the dance floor, the way he had hesitated when she asked what she meant to him. Victoria's words echoed in her mind like a poison. You're just another project. Her phone had been ringing constantly since Saturday night. 15 missed calls from Nathan, a dozen text messages that she couldn't bring herself to read. But she couldn't hide forever. The rebrand project was nearly complete, and she had a professional obligation to finish what she started, regardless of her bruised heart. When she finally arrived at Sterling Technologies, the building felt different. The magic had worn off, leaving only the cold reality of glass and steel. Derek met her at the elevator with an unreadable expression. Mr. Sterling wants to see you immediately, he said, his usual professional courtesy edged with something that might have been sympathy. Nathan's office door was open, but Cass knocked anyway. He stood at his usual spot by the window, but his posture was different today. Tense, exhausted. When he turned, she saw dark circles under his eyes, as if he hadn't slept in days. You came, he said, relief flooding his features. I was afraid. You wouldn't. I have a contract to fulfill, Cass replied, keeping her voice steady and professional. The rebrand is almost complete. I just need a few more days to finalize everything. Nathan flinched at her formal tone. Cass, please. Can we talk about what happened at the gala? There's nothing to talk about. Victoria was right. I let myself forget that this is a business relationship. It won't happen again. Cass opened her laptop, forcing herself to focus on the screen. Now about the final presentation to your board. I don't care about the presentation, Nathan interrupted, moving closer. I care about what you're thinking, what you're feeling. That night on the dance floor, when you asked what you meant to me, I froze. Not because I don't know, but because saying it out loud makes it real, and making it real means risking everything. Cass looked up at him, her heart pounding. Risking what, exactly? My carefully constructed world, my reputation, the empire I've built. Nathan ran his hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration she had come to recognize. I've spent the last 7 years building Sterling Technologies, sacrificing relationships and personal happiness for success. I told myself it was worth it, that fulfillment would come from achievement. And then you crashed into my life literally, and suddenly nothing felt worth it anymore if I couldn't share it with you. The media storm before Cass could respond, Derek burst into the office without knocking, his face pale. Mr. Sterling, we have a situation. You need to see this. He handed Nathan a tablet. Cass watched as Nathan's expression darkened with every second he stared at the screen. Finally, he looked at her with devastation in his eyes. I'm so sorry, Cass. I never meant for this to happen. Derek turned the tablet toward her. The headline screamed across a gossip website, Tech Billionaire Nathan Sterling's New Plaything. From coffee shop collision to Cinderella story. Below it were photos from the gala showing Nathan and Cass dancing, the way he looked at her, the intimacy of their body language. But worse were the accompanying articles. Filled with speculation and cruel commentary, someone had dug into her background, painting her as a struggling designer who had seduced her way into a lucrative contract. There were quotes from unnamed sources at Sterling Technologies suggesting favoritism, implying that her work wasn't good enough to deserve such a high-profile project. Victoria's influence was obvious, though her name appeared nowhere in the articles. "The board is convening an emergency meeting," Derek said quietly. "They're concerned about the optics, about how this affects the company's reputation." Cass felt numb. This was her worst nightmare, her private insecurities broadcast across the internet for everyone to judge. "I should resign from the project. That will make it go away." "Absolutely not," Nathan said fiercely. "You earned this contract through your talent long before anything personal developed between us. I won't let them take that away from you." "But Nathan, your company will survive. It survived worse than gossip websites." He turned to Derek. "Schedule the board meeting for this afternoon. I'll handle it." After Derek left, Nathan moved closer to Cass, his expression softening. "I know you're scared. I am too, but running away won't solve anything.
Yes!
It will only confirm what they're saying, that you don't belong here." "Maybe I don't," Cass whispered, tears finally spilling over. "Look at me, Nathan. I'm not Victoria. I don't come from money or connections. I don't know how to navigate your world. Maybe everyone's right. Maybe I am just a girl who got lucky." Nathan cupped her face gently, forcing her to meet his eyes. "You are brilliant, talented, and stronger than anyone I've ever met. You fought for every opportunity while people like Victoria had everything handed to them. That's not luck, Cass. That's courage. And it's one of the 1,000 reasons I'm in love with you." Time stopped. The words hung in the air between them, more real than anything Cass had ever heard. "What did you say?" she breathed. "I love you," Nathan repeated, his voice steady now, certain. "I think I started falling for you the moment you spilled coffee on me and looked at me like I was just another person, not a bank account or a business opportunity. You see me, Cass? The real me. And that terrifies me because I've never let anyone that close before." The grand gesture of the board meeting was scheduled for 3 o'clock. At 2:45, Nathan asked Cass to come with him. She tried to refuse, knowing her presence would only make things worse, but he insisted. "I need you there," he said simply. "Whatever happens, we face it together." The boardroom was filled with serious-faced executives, men and women who had helped build Sterling Technologies into what it was today. At the head of the table sat Richard Morrison, the chairman, a silver-haired man with the kind of authority that came from decades of corporate warfare. "Nathan, we need to discuss this situation," Richard began without preamble. "These articles are damaging our reputation. Our shareholders are concerned. Some are calling for your resignation." Nathan remained standing, his hand resting lightly on Cass's shoulder. "Then let me address their concerns directly. Yes, I'm in a relationship with Cassandra Mitchell. She's working on our rebrand. But one has nothing to do with the other. Cass was hired because she's the most talented designer I've encountered in years. Her work speaks for itself. Nevertheless, the appearance of impropriety," another board member began, "is exactly that, appearance." Nathan pulled up Cass's portfolio on the large screen, showing her designs not just for Sterling Technologies, but for dozens of other clients over the years. "This is her work. Look at the innovation, the emotional intelligence in every design. She was creating masterpieces while working out of her apartment with no connections and no advantages. That's not someone who needs my help. That's someone I'm privileged to work with." He clicked to another slide showing side-by-side comparisons of Cass's proposals against those from the major agencies they had considered. "To make us look like everyone else. Cass understood our mission and created something unique, something that actually represents who we are. If you want to fire her to appease gossip websites, then you're also asking me to sacrifice the best rebrand this company could have hoped for." Richard leaned back in his chair, studying Nathan thoughtfully. "You're putting a lot on the line. For this young woman, your reputation, your position as CEO, are you certain she's worth it?" Nathan looked down at Cass, and the love in his eyes was unmistakable. "I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Cass has reminded me why I started this company in the first place. It's not for wealth or status, but to create something meaningful, something that connects people. If being with her costs me everything I've built, then I've been building the wrong things. The room fell silent. Cass felt tears streaming down her face, but she didn't care anymore. Nathan had just risked everything for her, in front of the people who held his future in their hands. Finally, Richard spoke. Show us the final rebrand presentation. The presentation of a lifetime Cass stood on shaking legs and moved to the front of the room. This was it. The moment that would define not just her career, but her entire future. She pulled up her final designs, and as she began to speak, her voice grew stronger. She showed them the new logo, a design that managed to be both cutting-edge and warmly human. She walked them through the color palette, the typography, the entire visual language she had created. But more than that, she showed them the strategy behind every choice. How each element connected to Sterling Technologies' mission and values. This company was built on the belief that technology should serve humanity, not replace it, Cass said, feeling the passion that had driven her work flowing through her words. Every design choice reflects that belief. The warm colors suggest connection. The clean lines suggest innovation. Together, they create something that feels both forward-thinking and fundamentally human. She showed them mock-ups of how the rebrand would appear across all platforms, from websites to product packaging to the building itself. She had thought of everything, anticipated every question, prepared for every concern. This wasn't just a rebrand. It was a complete reimagining of how Sterling Technologies presented itself to the world. When she finished, the room was silent. Then Richard began to clap, slowly at first, then with genuine enthusiasm. One by one, the other board members joined in. That, Richard said, is exactly what this company needs. Ms. Mitchell, you have our full support. And Nathan, your instincts were correct. We would have been fools to let her go. Love and new beginnings outside the boardroom. Cass collapsed against the wall, adrenaline finally wearing off. Nathan was there immediately, pulling her into his arms. You were magnificent, he murmured into her hair. I knew you would be. I can't believe you did that, Cass said, her voice muffled against his chest. You risked everything, not everything. Just the things that don't matter without you. Nathan pulled back to look at her. I meant what I said in there. I love you, Cassandra Mitchell. Not because you're convenient or because you're a project, but because you make me want to be better than I am. You make me remember that success means nothing if you have no one to share it with. Cass reached up to touch his face, finally allowing herself to believe this was real. I love you too. I think I have since that first day when you looked at my designs like they mattered, like I mattered. Nathan kissed her then, in the hallway outside the boardroom, where anyone could see. It was a declaration, a promise, a beginning. When they finally broke apart, both of them were smiling. So what happens now? Cass asked. Now we finish the rebrand. We deal with whatever gossip comes our way together. Build something real. Not just professionally, but personally. Nathan took her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. Maybe if you're willing, you move out of that tiny apartment and into my place. It's been too quiet for too long. Cass laughed, feeling lighter than she had in weeks.
I don't know.
Your apartment is probably bigger than my entire building. I might get lost. Then I'll just have to make sure I'm always there to find you. 6 months later, the new Sterling Technologies branding launched to overwhelming acclaim. Tech journals praised its innovative approach. Design magazines featured it in spreads about the future of corporate identity. But more importantly, employees and customers connected with it in ways the old branding never achieved. Cass's career exploded. She received offers from companies around the world, but she chose to start her own design firm with Nathan as her first investor and biggest supporter. She hired young designers like herself, people with talent but few opportunities, and created the kind of supportive environment she had always dreamed of. Nathan and Cass's relationship continued to draw media attention, but they learned to ignore the noise. They showed up at charity galas together, yes, but they also spent quiet evenings in their shared home. ordering takeout and arguing about design choices, it's like they had in those early days in his office. Victoria eventually moved to New York, her attempts to cause trouble fading into irrelevance. The last Cass heard, she was engaged to a hedge fund manager, finally finding someone who fit her world. On a crisp autumn morning, exactly 1 year after that fateful coffee shop collision, Nathan took Cass back to the Emerald Coffee House. They sat at a corner table, sipping lattes and watching the morning rush of Seattle go by. Do you ever think about how different our lives would be if I had been looking where I was going that day? Cass asked, leaning against Nathan's shoulder. Every day, Nathan admitted, and every day I'm grateful you weren't. Sometimes the best things in life come from the accidents, the moments we don't plan for. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, like this moment right now. I had a whole elaborate proposal planned. Private beach, sunset, the works. But sitting here, where it all started, this feels right. Cass's breath caught as he opened the box, revealing a stunning ring that somehow managed to be both elegant and unique, just like everything about their relationship. Cassandra Mitchell, you crashed into my life and changed everything, reminded me what matters, what real success looks like. It's not money or status or empire building. It's finding someone who sees you completely and loves you anyway. Nathan took her hand, his gray eyes shining with emotion. Will you marry me? Cass didn't hesitate. Yes, 1,000 times yes. As Nathan slipped the ring onto her finger, Cass thought about the journey that had brought them here. Embarrassment, the doubts, the obstacles they had overcome. She thought about the girl who had been so afraid of not being good enough, and the woman she had become through love and partnership. Outside, autumn leaves danced in the Seattle breeze. Inside, two people who had collided by chance held each other close, knowing they had found something rare and precious. A love that transcended wealth and status, was built on mutual respect and genuine connection. Their story had started with spilled coffee and scattered dreams. It would continue with shared hopes and endless possibilities. Because sometimes, the best love stories begin with the most ordinary accidents, transforming into something extraordinary through courage, authenticity, and the willingness to risk everything for what truly matters. And as they left the coffee shop hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next together, Cass knew one thing with absolute certainty. She had found her home, not in a place, but in a person. And that was the greatest success of all.